The rain fell hard that night. Streets were almost empty, only the sound of water splashing in the dark alleys. Daniel, a tired old man with gray hair, walked slowly back to his small apartment. His shoes were soaked, his coat too thin to fight the cold wind. He carried a plastic bag with bread and milk, the only food he could afford that day. Daniel lived a quiet life. He worked long hours at the factory, then came home to silence. His wife had passed away years ago, and he never had children. Most people in his neighborhood barely noticed him. He was just another lonely man, forgotten by the busy world. But that night would not be quiet. That night would change everything. As Daniel passed by an old, broken building at the corner of the street, he heard something. At first, he thought it was only the wind. But then came a sound, soft, shaky breathing. A cough. A whisper. He stopped. His heart beat faster. Slowly, he stepped closer to the building. Through the broken doorframe, he saw 3 small figures huddled together. Children. Their clothes were dirty, their hair wet from the rain. One of them tried to cover the others with an old blanket, but it was too thin to keep them warm. Daniel's chest tightened. The oldest child, maybe 12 years old, looked up with frightened eyes. Beside him was a younger girl, perhaps 9, shivering and hugging her knees. The smallest boy, maybe only 6, hid behind them, coughing weakly. For a moment, no one spoke. The children stared at Daniel, and Daniel stared back. He felt his throat go dry. He wanted to walk away. He told himself, "This is not your problem." He had no money to spare. He barely fed himself. He was too old to take care of anyone else. But then the little girl whispered something. Her voice was soft, broken, almost lost in the rain. "Please, don't tell anyone." Daniel froze. He saw fear in her eyes, not just hunger. Fear that someone dangerous might find them. Fear that the world had already been too cruel. He stood there, his mind fighting itself. Part of him said, "Leave now. You can't help them." Another part whispered, "If you leave, they might not survive the night." Daniel remembered his own childhood. He remembered nights of hunger, when his father had nothing to give him. He remembered sleeping cold and alone, wishing for anyone to care. His hands shook. He stepped forward. "Are you hungry?" he asked softly. The children did not answer. But their eyes wide, desperate, told him everything. Daniel sighed and opened his plastic bag. He broke the bread in half and handed it to the oldest boy. The boy hesitated, then grabbed it quickly and shared with the others. They ate like they had not seen food in days. Daniel watched them. Each bite they took cut into his heart. They were only children, yet the world had already left scars on them. When the bread was gone, the smallest boy leaned against the wall, too weak to even speak. Daniel's mind raced. He knew leaving them here meant danger, illness, hunger, or worse. But what could he do? He had so little himself. He turned to walk away. His steps were heavy. His chest felt tight. Then he heard it. "Wait," the girl said, her voice shaking. Daniel looked back. Rain dripped down her face, mixing with tears. She whispered again. "Don't leave us." The words hit him harder than anything else. His knees felt weak. His heart, which had been silent for so long, beat with painful force. He stood still in the rain, fighting tears of his own. Finally, he let out a long breath. He knew the choice was impossible. But he also knew he could not turn away. "Come," he said firmly. The children looked at him, confused. "You can't stay here. It's too cold. You'll get sick." He stretched out his hand. "Come with me." The oldest boy hesitated, ready to protect the others. But slowly, carefully, he helped the younger two stand. Together, they followed Daniel out of the ruined building. The streets were empty, but Daniel felt the weight of the decision pressing on his shoulders. He led them through the rain, step by step, until they reached his small apartment. Inside, the children looked around quietly. The place was simple old furniture, one small bed, cracked walls. But it was warm, and it was safe. Daniel gave them dry towels, an extra blanket, and poured milk into cups. The children drank quickly, their hands shaking from the cold. For the first time in years, Daniel did not feel alone. He sat down, staring at the three strangers who now sat on his floor. He didn't know their names. He didn't know their story. He only knew one thing: his life would never be the same. As he watched them slowly fall asleep under the blanket, a strange thought entered his mind. What if I made the wrong choice? The question echoed in his heart. But another voice whispered louder. Or maybe, the right one. That night, Daniel did not sleep. He sat by the window, listening to the rain, and wondered what kind of future he had just walked into. One thing was certain: this was only the beginning. The morning sun crept through the cracked window, painting the small apartment in pale light. Daniel opened his eyes slowly. He was sitting in the old chair near the bed, his back stiff from sleeping upright. For a moment, he wondered if last night had been a dream. But then he turned his head. Three children lay curled together on the floor under the blanket, their breathing soft and steady. Their faces, tired and pale, looked younger in the daylight. For the first time, they seemed safe. Daniel sighed. He rubbed his eyes. His mind whispered the same question again: what have you done? He stood up and quietly went to the kitchen. There wasn't much: some bread, a few eggs, and one carton of milk already half empty. Not nearly enough for 4 people. He cracked the eggs into a pan, the sizzling sound filling the silence. The smell slowly drifted across the room, and soon, the children began to stir. The little boy sat up first, rubbing his eyes. The girl helped him, whispering something gentle in his ear. The oldest boy looked at Daniel with suspicion, his eyes sharp and protective. Breakfast, Daniel said simply, sliding the eggs onto plates. The children hesitated, but hunger pushed them forward. They ate quickly, though the oldest boy still watched Daniel carefully, as if expecting some hidden danger. Daniel sat across the table, his hands folded. I don't know your names, he said after a while. The girl lowered her fork and whispered, I'm Lily. The smallest boy wiped his mouth with his sleeve. Ben. The oldest spoke last. His voice was steady but guarded. Sam. Daniel nodded slowly. I'm Daniel. It was a simple introduction, but it felt like a beginning. Days turned into weeks. Daniel's small apartment was never quiet anymore. Ben's laughter echoed through the rooms when he found something funny. Lily filled the table with drawings made from scraps of paper Daniel brought from work. Sam, though still serious, began helping Daniel with small chores, fixing the squeaky chair, washing dishes, keeping the place clean. But behind those small moments of warmth was a hard reality. Money. Daniel's factory job barely covered his own needs. Now, with 3 hungry children, every coin mattered. He started working extra shifts, returning home late, his body aching. His shoes wore out faster, his hands grew rougher, and his back bent lower. Sometimes he ate only bread so the children could have more. Sometimes he went to bed hungry but smiled when he saw their plates full. The children noticed. One night, Sam spoke up. You don't have to do this, he said, his voice tight. Daniel frowned. Do what? Take care of us. You don't owe us anything. Daniel looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. Maybe not. But I made a choice. And I don't regret it. Sam wanted to argue, but Lily touched his arm. He means it, she whispered. Ben, already half asleep, mumbled softly, Dad's not lying. The word Dad froze Daniel. His chest tightened, and his eyes grew wet. He turned away quickly, hiding the emotion on his face. But not everyone saw Daniel's kindness as a good thing. The neighbors whispered when he passed by. Some laughed. Some called him a fool. He can't even take care of himself, one man muttered. And now he's feeding strays? Another woman shook her head. Those kids will bring trouble. Just wait and see. Daniel heard the words, but he kept walking. What else could he do? He knew the world didn't understand. He knew most people only looked out for themselves. At night, though, when he closed the door and saw the children safe, warm, and smiling, he felt stronger. The world outside could laugh, but inside these walls, he had a family. Still, shadows of the children's past never left them. Sometimes Sam woke up in the middle of the night, breathing hard, as if fighting invisible enemies. Sometimes Lily stared out the window too long, her eyes filled with sadness. And Ben often clung to Daniel's sleeve, afraid to let go when Daniel left for work. One evening, Daniel found Lily sitting by the window, silent. "Everything all right?" he asked gently. She didn't look at him. "Sometimes I dream about the streets," she whispered. "I dream that we're back there, alone. And then I wake up, and you're here." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. But even as he spoke, a shadow crossed the street outside. A tall figure lingered near the building, watching. For a second, Daniel thought his tired eyes were playing tricks. But then the figure moved, slow and deliberate, before disappearing into the night. Daniel's heart raced. He looked back at Lily. She hadn't noticed. Neither had Sam or Ben. But Daniel knew someone was out there. Someone who might know these children. Someone who might want them back. He stood by the window long after the children went to sleep, staring into the dark street. And for the first time since he had taken them in, Daniel felt fear. The next morning, Daniel walked to the factory with heavy steps. The night had left him restless. His eyes were tired, but it wasn't work that weighed on him, it was that shadow. That figure standing outside his building. All day, his mind replayed the image, the tall frame, the slow movement, the way it seemed to linger just long enough to be noticed. He didn't know who it was, but his heart told him it wasn't good. When he came home that evening, the children were waiting. Ben rushed to him with his usual smile, Lily hugged him, and Sam stood back, as always, watching carefully. Daniel forced a smile and pretended everything was normal. But inside, he was alert. For several nights, nothing happened. The streets stayed empty, the building silent. Daniel began to wonder if it had only been his imagination. Then one evening, as he returned late from his shift, he found Sam sitting awake by the door, his face pale. "What's wrong?" Daniel asked quickly. Sam hesitated. His voice was low, trembling. "I saw him again. The man. He was standing across the street." Daniel's chest tightened. So it wasn't his imagination. "Do you know him?" Daniel asked carefully. Sam's lips pressed together. His eyes flicked away. For a long time, he didn't answer. Finally, he said, "We used to belong to someone. He wasn't kind. He made us do things. Steal, lie, run messages for him. When we escaped, I knew he wouldn't forget." Daniel's hands curled into fists. He wanted to ask more, but the look on Sam's face stopped him. The boy was already carrying too much. "Listen to me," Daniel said firmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "As long as you're here, no one is taking you back." Sam looked at him, surprised by the strength in Daniel's voice. For the first time, his hard eyes softened. He nodded slowly. Days passed, but the feeling of being watched never left. Daniel worked harder, always rushing home, always scanning the streets. He slept less, his ears tuned to every sound at night. One Saturday afternoon, when the children were playing quietly inside, there was a knock on the door. Daniel froze. He wasn't expecting anyone. Hardly anyone ever visited. Slowly, he opened the door. A tall man stood there, his coat dark, his eyes sharp like knives. He smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Evening," the man said smoothly. His voice carried a cold edge. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Daniel's stomach twisted. He didn't need to ask who he meant. "You're mistaken," Daniel said, his voice calm though his hands trembled. The man's eyes narrowed. 3 kids. Runaways. They've been seen around here. He leaned closer. You know where they are. Daniel's body tensed, but he kept his ground. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smirked, stepping back. You're an old man. You can't protect them. Sooner or later, they'll come back to me. That's how the world works. And with that, he walked away, leaving Daniel shaken at the door. When Daniel turned, he saw Sam standing in the hallway. The boy's fists were clenched, his jaw tight. That was him, Sam whispered. His voice shook with anger and fear. That's the man. Daniel's heart sank. He pulled Sam close and whispered, Listen to me. You're safe here. I won't let him take you. But even as he said the words, doubt crawled inside him. He was only one man, old, tired, and weak. The man at the door was younger, stronger, dangerous. Still, Daniel knew one thing: he would fight, even if it cost him everything. That night, he gathered the children. They sat on the floor, the lamp casting soft light around them. You need to understand, Daniel said, his voice steady. That man might come back. He might try to scare us. But you don't have to be afraid. You're not alone anymore. Lily's eyes filled with tears. What if he hurts you? Daniel smiled sadly. Then he'll have to go through me first. Ben, too small to understand fully, grabbed Daniel's arm and whispered, We won't let him. Sam looked at Daniel, his face serious. We'll fight too. Daniel shook his head. Not you. You're children. You shouldn't have to fight. But Sam's eyes burned with determination. We already had to fight. Out there, on the streets, every day was a fight. But now, he glanced at his brother and sister. Now we have something worth protecting. Daniel felt pride swell in his chest. For the first time, he realized these weren't just broken kids. They were strong, stronger than he had ever been at their age. The days that followed were tense. Daniel kept the door locked, checked the windows twice, and walked the children to school himself. He could feel the man's presence lingering in the city, waiting, watching. But despite the fear, something else grew in that small apartment: bond. Every meal shared, every laugh, every quiet evening by the window drew them closer. Daniel no longer felt like an old, lonely man. He felt like a father. And the children, slowly, began to feel like a family. Yet the shadow of danger never left. One late evening, as Daniel closed the shop gate where he worked extra hours, he noticed something. Across the street, under the dim glow of a streetlight, the tall man stood again. This time, he wasn't smiling. His eyes were cold, his posture tense. And behind him, two more figures appeared, darker, silent, waiting. Daniel's breath caught. His heart pounded. It was no longer just a threat. It was a promise. Time moved like a river, slow, steady, but never stopping. Years passed since the night Daniel opened his door to 3 homeless children. The little apartment that once echoed with silence now carried the sound of laughter, arguments, and life. The shadows of the past had not disappeared, but the bond they built together grew stronger than fear. Sam, Lily, and Ben were no longer children. They had become young adults with dreams bigger than the walls of Daniel's old apartment. Sam, once the boy who watched everything with suspicious eyes, had grown into a man with steady hands and a calm mind. He studied hard, working nights to pay for school, until finally he became a medic. His purpose was clear: to heal, to give others the safety Daniel once gave him. Lily, the quiet girl who drew pictures on scraps of paper, had turned her voice into a weapon of justice. She studied law, fighting for those who had no one to speak for them. She carried herself with confidence, her kindness sharp and strong at the same time. And Ben, the smallest, who once clung to Daniel's sleeve, became the boldest of all. He joined the police academy, determined to stand between the innocent and the cruel. His heart was fearless, but he never forgot where that courage was born, from the man who had given him shelter. Daniel watched them with pride. He was older now, his hair fully gray, his body slower, but his heart was full. One evening, the family gathered around the table, just like the old days. The apartment was still the same: cracked walls, old furniture, but it felt alive. Sam told stories from the clinic, Lily shared about her cases, and Ben spoke about training at the station. Daniel listened quietly, smiling. "You've all done more than I ever imagined," he said softly. Lily looked at him. "We only followed your example." Ben leaned forward, his voice warm. "You saved us, Daniel. We just want to make you proud." Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded, hiding the tears in his eyes. For years, he had carried the memory of that dark figure, the man who once threatened to take the children away. But slowly, with time, that shadow faded. Maybe he had given up. Maybe the world had swallowed him whole. Whatever the reason, Daniel was grateful. At last, his children, were free. But life has a way of testing even the strongest hearts. One cold winter night, Daniel sat alone in the chair by the window. The children had gone home after dinner, leaving him in the quiet. He reached for his cup of tea, but his hand shook. The cup slipped, falling to the floor with a soft crash. His chest tightened. A sharp pain spread across his body. His breath grew shallow. Daniel tried to stand, but his legs gave out. He fell back into the chair, gasping. The room blurred around him. His mind screamed for help, but no sound left his lips. His vision dimmed. He thought of Sam, Lily, and Ben. Their faces flashed before him, the children he had taken in, the family he never expected. His heart begged for more time, but his body betrayed him. Daniel closed his eyes. Darkness pressed in. At that very moment, across the city, Lily's phone buzzed. She frowned, looking at the screen. It was Daniel's number, but the call ended before she answered. Something felt wrong. She tried calling back, but no one picked up. Her chest grew tight. She didn't wait. She called Sam and Ben, her voice shaking. Something's wrong with Daniel. I can feel it. Within minutes, all three of them were running, Sam from the clinic, Ben from the station, Lily from her office. Their hearts pounded with fear. The city lights blurred around them as they rushed toward the apartment that had once been their only safe place. Inside, Daniel's breaths were faint, his skin pale. The old man lay slumped in his chair, his eyes half closed. The door burst open. "Daniel!" Sam cried, rushing to his side. Lily dropped to her knees, holding his hand. "Stay with us. Please." Ben's voice cracked. "Don't leave us, Dad. Not like this." Daniel's lips moved weakly. His voice was barely a whisper. "You came back." His eyes fluttered shut. The room filled with the sound of the beeping monitor from the portable medical kit Sam had ripped open. Sam's hands pressed firmly on Daniel's chest, beginning CPR. Sweat ran down his face. "Stay with me. Breathe. Come on." Lily dialed the hospital with trembling hands, shouting for help. Ben stood by the door, calling his team for emergency backup, his voice breaking with panic. The apartment that once gave life was now filled with fear of losing it. As the sirens echoed in the distance, Daniel's body grew still. Sam pressed harder, desperate. Lily's tears fell onto Daniel's hand. Ben's fists clenched at his sides, helpless but refusing to give up. For the first time since their childhood, the three of them felt that same fear again, the fear of losing the only person who ever chose them. The sirens drew closer. Red and blue lights flashed against the window. Paramedics stormed in with stretchers and equipment. But in that breathless moment, as they fought to keep Daniel alive, one question filled the room like a shadow. Would they be too late? The sirens cut through the night like sharp blades. Red and blue lights flashed against the old apartment walls, painting the room in colors of urgency. Paramedics rushed inside, their voices sharp and commanding, but to Sam, Lily, and Ben, the world felt muffled, like everything was moving underwater. Daniel lay still on the stretcher, his chest rising only because of Sam's desperate CPR. Sweat ran down Sam's face as he counted each press, refusing to stop. Step back, we'll take it from here, one medic ordered. Sam shook his head, his voice breaking. No, he's my father. I won't stop until he breathes. The medic touched his shoulder firmly. You did everything right. Now let us. Sam's hands trembled as he finally moved aside, his chest heaving. Lily held his arm tightly, her own tears streaming. Ben hovered near the door, pacing like a trapped animal, fists clenched, eyes locked on Daniel's pale face. The medics worked quickly, attaching wires, pushing oxygen, checking the heart monitor. Each second felt endless. The sharp sound of the flatline made Lily's stomach twist in terror. No, she whispered, shaking her head. Not like this. One medic grabbed the defibrillator paddles. Clear. Daniel's body jolted violently. The monitor beeped, then went flat again. Clear. Another jolt. Sam covered his mouth with shaking hands. Ben slammed his fist against the wall, his voice raw. Come on, old man. Fight. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then. Beep. 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 The monitor's steady rhythm returned. Daniel's chest rose faintly with breath. He's back, the medic said firmly. Let's move him now. Relief hit the three siblings like a wave, but fear still clung to their hearts. They followed the stretcher down the stairwell, through the flashing lights, and into the ambulance. The ride to the hospital was chaos. Machines hummed, the medic called out numbers, and Daniel lay in the center of it all, fragile, weak, but alive. Lily sat by his side, gripping his hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. You're not leaving us, she whispered fiercely. Not after everything. Not now. Sam sat across, his mind racing. He had saved lives before, strangers in the clinic, patients on the edge of death, but this was different. This was the man who had saved him. His father, not by blood but by choice. Sam's chest burned with guilt that he hadn't been there sooner. Ben sat stiff, staring at the doors as if daring death itself to try again. His badge shone on his chest, but tonight, he felt helpless. All his training, all his strength, it meant nothing if Daniel slipped away. At the hospital, doctors rushed Daniel into the emergency room. The three waited outside, pacing, crying, praying in silence. Time stretched endlessly. Every second felt like a knife. Sam finally sat down, burying his face in his hands. I should have known. He's been getting weaker. I should have checked on him more. Lily shook her head, tears streaking her face. Don't blame yourself. None of us saw it coming. Ben stood near the wall, his jaw tight. We saw him as strong. We always did. Maybe too much. His voice cracked. He's all we have. Silence filled the hallway. Each of them sank into their own memories of that first night, of Daniel's tired eyes but gentle voice, of the way he gave them bread even when he had none. Sam remembered Daniel standing between them and danger, though his hands shook with age. Lily remembered Daniel sitting beside her at the window, promising she wasn't alone. Ben remembered the word Dad slipping from his lips, and Daniel's silent tears he thought he didn't notice. Flashbacks washed over them like waves, reminding them of a truth stronger than fear: they were alive because of him. And now, they had to fight for him. Hours passed before the doctor finally stepped out. He's stable for now, the doctor said, his tone cautious. But it was close. Very close. Relief hit them, but the weight didn't lift. Sam stood quickly. Can we see him? The doctor nodded. Briefly. They entered the room quietly. Daniel lay on the bed, wires attached, his breathing slow but steady. His skin was pale, but his chest rose and fell, a sign of life. Lily sat beside him first, holding his hand again. We thought we lost you. Ben stood at the foot of the bed, his shoulders trembling. Don't you dare scare us like that again, old man. His voice cracked despite his attempt to sound strong. Sam leaned close, his eyes burning with unshed tears. You saved us once. Now it's our turn. We won't let you go. Daniel's eyelids fluttered weakly. His lips moved. They leaned in close to hear. You came back. His voice was a broken whisper. Yes, Lily said firmly, tears running down her cheeks. Always. His hand squeezed hers faintly, and a small smile touched his lips before he drifted into sleep. Outside, the siblings sat together in the quiet hospital hallway. The fear hadn't left them, but something stronger filled their hearts' resolve. Sam broke the silence. He gave us everything when he had nothing. We can't just wait and hope. We need to be there. For him. Every step. Lily nodded, her eyes shining. He carried us when we were weak. Now we carry him. Ben's jaw tightened, his voice steady. Whatever it takes. We won't let him face this alone. The three of them sat in silence, their hands joined, their hearts beating as one. But deep inside, each of them wondered the same terrifying question. Would love be enough to keep him alive? The hospital room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. Daniel lay in the bed, weak but alive. His chest rose slowly, his breathing calm. The pale sunlight slipped through the curtains, touching his face gently, as if the world itself wanted him to rest. Sam sat on one side of the bed, his hands folded, eyes heavy from sleepless nights. Lily was beside him, her notebook open but forgotten, her attention fixed on Daniel's every breath. Ben stood near the door, alert, as though guarding his father from invisible enemies. For days, they had lived in that hospital, taking turns sleeping in chairs, refusing to leave Daniel alone. Finally, one morning, Daniel stirred. His eyes opened slowly. He looked around, confused for a moment, until he saw them. You're still here, he whispered, his voice hoarse. Lily's face broke into a smile filled with tears. Where else would we be? Sam leaned forward. You scared us. We thought we lost you. Daniel gave a weak chuckle. It'll take more than that to get rid of me. Ben shook his head, his voice thick. Don't joke about it. We can't lose you, Dad. The word Dad hung in the air. Daniel blinked, his eyes wet. For years, he had wondered if they truly saw him as family, or just a kind stranger who gave them shelter. Now he had his answer. Recovery was slow. Daniel's body was tired, but his spirit was stubborn. The doctors warned him, no more long hours, no more stress. He needed care, rest, and time. But Daniel was not alone anymore. Sam managed his medicines and checked his vitals with the skill of a medic, his steady hands proving he had grown into the healer Daniel always knew he could be. Lily handled every hospital paper, every form, every conversation with officials, her sharp words protecting Daniel from confusion or unfairness. Ben drove them all back and forth, stayed close at night, and kept watch like a soldier guarding a fortress. Together, they gave back what Daniel had given them long ago: safety, comfort, love. One evening, weeks later, Daniel sat on a bench outside the hospital, the cool breeze brushing against his face. He wore a blanket around his shoulders, his body thinner but his eyes brighter. The three children, no, not children anymore, but adults, sat with him. Sam to his left, Lily to his right, Ben standing proudly behind him. Daniel looked at them one by one. His voice was soft, filled with emotion. When I found you that night, I thought I was saving 3 children. I didn't know I was saving myself too. They were silent, listening. You gave me a reason to wake up. A reason to fight. A reason to live, Daniel continued, his voice breaking slightly. I thought I was too old to have a family. But you proved me wrong. You are my family. Lily reached for his hand, her eyes glistening. We've always been. We just needed you to remind us what family really means. Sam's voice was firm. You gave us a home when we had nothing. You gave us love when the world had none. Now it's our turn. Ben leaned forward, his voice steady, strong. You're not alone. Not ever again. Daniel closed his eyes, feeling their words sink into his heart. He thought of the lonely nights before he met them, the emptiness that had once consumed his life. And then he thought of warmth, of love, of belonging. A single tear rolled down his cheek, but his smile was the brightest they had ever seen. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in gold and orange. The four of them sat together, silent but connected, bound not by blood but by something stronger. Daniel whispered, "Looks like I didn't just save 3 kids. I found my family." Sam placed a hand on his shoulder. "And we found our father." Lily leaned against him, her voice soft. "The only father we ever needed." Ben's voice was quiet but certain. "And the only one we'll ever have." Daniel breathed deeply, his chest rising with peace. For the first time in a long, long life, he felt complete. The world outside continued, busy and careless. Strangers walked by, cars rushed down the road, and life moved on. But on that bench, in that small corner of the world, something greater existed. A circle had been completed. A decision made on a rainy night long ago had come full circle. The man who once saved 3 lost children was now saved by them. And together, they would walk forward, not as broken pieces, not as shadows of the past, but as a family bound forever by love and sacrifice.